Our next speaker, Raquel Okyay, is a political columnist and commentator. She's published all over the place: Human Events, Townhall, Guns and Patriots, one of my favorites, Rockland County Times, and Politics New York. Raquel also serves on the board of directors of New York State Right to Life and as a state chairwoman of govabuse.com. In her presentation, Raquel will describe the child protective industry as ineffective, dangerous to families, and operating above the law. Raquel?
Hi, my name is Raquel Okyay. I'm a columnist and a political commentator. I'm a published author of a couple of different newspapers and publications. I'm a member of the justice team of the Tampa Tea Party, and we've been putting together this conference for about 6 months. And we're here to talk about the government and families and the law. There's a lot of information out there that people are not aware of, and the public and the media and the politicians aren't talking about it, but we're going to talk about it today. And what I'm going to be talking about is the corruption involved within Child Protective Services. Unfortunately, the Child Protective Service industry, Department of Children and Families, they are just pulling too many kids out of people's homes, and they're pulling kids just for any reason, not because the child is in imminent harm. They're pulling kids because for anything. Your house is a mess. They don't think your lawn is clean. Your kid was out in the yard by themselves. And they just seem to be pulling all these kids out of people's homes, like good homes, and then putting them into homes that they fare more dangerously. And those are statistics that we have. So we're going to be talking about all that today, and I'm really happy that you came, and thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad to see you all out here today. It's really important for us to get out to the public what's going on, because I think that when people really see what is happening to our children and families in America, well, I think they're going to join us. And I think with that, and a lot of numbers, it gives us some power. So we can kind of start taking our country back. We have a lot of problems when the people that we entrust with our children aren't doing the right thing. And in fact, they're hurting children. So it's a little bit, it's almost worse than a child abuser who's a parent. Not that I'm saying that's good. I'm just saying that we have a system that pretends to be protecting the children, and they're not. So it's really a sheep in wolf's clothing. And I think one of the ways for us to combat this is to just get the word out, because once people realize and understand and do their own research, well, then they'll see that, we're telling you the truth here. There are children, parents, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, they are suffering. They're suffering really bad. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit. I've been doing an investigation in almost 3 years on this topic, and I've had the opportunity to interview quite a few people involved. I've interviewed guardian ad litems and attorneys and parents, and police officers and doctors and experts and parents, advocacy groups. So this has been this is a culmination of about three years worth of research. And I guess the biggest problem, and I'm going to start with that, is how CPS operates. Well, they throw the law out the window. If they were following the law, including state statute and Florida Constitution, as well as the United States Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, we wouldn't have these problems, because then people would get defense. In our country, we are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. If we permitted people to take law into their own hands, well, we would just have vigilantes out there. But that's not what we have. We have a system of laws that protects the innocent. That's what makes America great. Now, in family court and dependency court all over the country, not just in Florida, well, they're using that venue to literally, in my opinion, kidnap kids, to put them in the system, make the money and all that. Now, this is, if you tell somebody who doesn't know anything about it, they probably don't believe you. Something so, no, that can't be happening. Or maybe of course there's mistakes, and people make mistakes, and that's going to happen. But I'm not talking about mistakes.
I'm talking about a pattern that exists that is abusing parents and children, and this is at the hands of the people who we entrust to take care of our children. So I'd like to get that message out there to people, and you can do your own research. It's out there. I mean, let me just try to go through the system, how it happens. One call comes in. It could be anybody. It could be a crackhead from a county outside of your county. You haven't seen them in 10 years. You don't know who the heck they are. It doesn't matter who it is. It's anonymous. They say whatever they want. It could be an enemy. All right, so they call the 911 number, and they say so-and-so is abusing their child. And an investigation, you know, or I mean, they can kind of feel through some of these calls, and they don't answer every single call, of course, but they certainly try to answer every single call because, again, the goal isn't really to save children in abusive homes. The goal is to get the kids in the state's care so they can collect that money that we're all talking about. Okay, so the call comes in, the police tag up with the Department of Children and Families or CPS, one or the other. And that's an intimidation tactic. In any event, and unfortunately, law enforcement are generally working with the Department of Children and Families. Sometimes CPS is employed at the sheriff's level, so they are working all together. And you know, it's like a big party. You know, parents, innocent, If that caseworker, that CPS worker, that law enforcement officer, they said, you did that, you did it. No proof, no evidence, nothing. One person, you did it. That's enough. Well, it's not enough in real life, but it is enough in dependency court, and it's certainly enough in family court. Look, child abuse is a serious crime, and there's a penalty for it as well. And our state legislature have determined penalties for child abuse. So that child abuser in a criminal court, well, they are considered innocent until proven guilty, and I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. I want them to be innocent until proven guilty because I want the government to prove their case, because that's what America's all about. But that doesn't happen in civil court venues where you have family court and CPS court. Everything happens differently. You don't have a jury. You don't. It's a preponderance of the evidence. Caseworkers, social workers, they submit documents into court, where in criminal court it would be deemed, it would have to be submitted by an attorney. Because there's something different between when an attorney submits a document into the court, it's called verified. And which it just means, you know, they're an officer of the court, they're an attorney. They have to, if they're going to sign a verified complaint making accusations, well, you better be darn sure that they're going to make sure that those accusations are right, because they have a career to uphold. But when it comes to dependency court and family court in the civil arena, no one has to prove anything. Even though rules of evidence stay the same in any court in the United States of America, there's certain rules of evidence, they don't follow them. So let me just give you an example. So CPS makes a call. They show up at your house, banging on the door, telling you we can come in, and no, they can't. By the way, if you all know what the Fourth Amendment means, they cannot come into your home. Your home is your castle. That's also something that has been codified in the law many, many, many times over. It's really what makes us different. You know what? No, you can't come to my house whenever you feel like it, Mr. Government Agent, just because some crackhead from some other county decided to make a complaint. And you have to be really, you have to understand this, because even law enforcement officers don't get it. They do not have a right to come into your home unless you give them consent, and that's okay too. If you want to give someone consent, go ahead. I wouldn't. I don't trust them. You can either give them consent, or you can be a fleeing felon. So they just saw you rob a bank and they're chasing after you. Well, they can run after you right into your home. That's fine. So we have fleeing felon and consent. Nowhere in case law or the Supreme Court or anybody says that you can go ahead and do these things without any proof. But they do it anyway. So they file these verified documents claiming that they're verified or that they're truthful, and they're not even verified. They're certainly not verified by an attorney, but they kind of get around all that. So it ends up being accusations of forced entry into your home. At time, normally people don't realize that they really do have a right to say, no, I'm sorry, you don't have to come in. And then you cannot come in my home. Then you have instances where the parents are intimidated and told or misinformed by the police officers or the CPS that they are allowed to go. That's another thing they do, by the way. I've seen over and over and over in every single case that I've looked at and interviewed. It's just that they don't even know the law. The agents don't know the law, the law enforcement don't know the law, the lawyers don't even know the law. And it takes you, the person now, on the defense, because you're being accused of anything. You got to start looking up Chapter 39, which is what determines determines the laws. You have to look up the Constitution. You have to basically become a lawyer if you want to actually defend yourself. And that is what's going on today. So then, once they snatch your kid. They come in your house. They make the littlest thing. They could just do it for no reason. Legally, they can. It's supposed to be imminent harm. If a police officer is outside and they hear somebody screaming inside, obviously we want the police officer to go in. But that's not the scenarios that are happening. They're telling parents, we can take your kid on a potential. So if you smoke cigarettes and you have a separate room to smoke your cigarettes in your own home, but you have a vent there, well, the CPS agent is going to say, well, you know what? There's a potential that your child's going to get hurt, and we're going to go ahead and take them. You're like, what? What do you mean you're going to take my kid? Well, yeah, there's a lot of potential for harm here. So then, well, if you say, what do you mean you're going to take? You can't do that. Well, the cop says, well, you're resisting arrest now. We're going to arrest you on, what did I do wrong? Well, we're going to arrest you for child neglect. And it's like, you're like, what? And your whole life is turned upside down. Once they take your child, you are done. They will fight tooth and nail to keep that child into custody because of all the money that they're getting. This is just over and over and over and over again, and I really, really wish it was isolated problems, but it's not. Every single family case that I have taken a look at is the same thing over and over and over. It's the same trickery. Sign this case plan, and when you complete all the things that we want you to do, jump through hoops, all these things we want you to do because we know what's best for the government, then you're going to get your kids back who are in foster care, who has a terrible reputation of just not taking care of kids either. I'll talk about that in a second. So the parents are desperate. They'll do anything. The state makes them take parenting classes, domestic violence classes, psych evaluations, drug treatments, drug testing, anything that they can think of to just keep the parents busy. And then another thing that is really common is that they do everything possible to prevent you from actually doing the plan that they propose. And they are literally extorting parents. You see your two kids in foster care with strangers, and you only get to see them twice a month for an hour. Yeah, we're going to give them back. We're going to give them back. You know what you got to do? You sign right here. Sign here. We'll give them back, I promise. Mm-hmm. They never give them back. Because now you do your case plan, they make it really difficult for you anyway, but you go ahead and do it, and you lose your job over it because you can't work full time and attend all these classes, and they'll call you up, you have to be there in 5 minutes, and you gotta run down there and stuff like that. It's just absolutely insane. People lose their jobs because they can't even make all the court appearances, never mind hiring an attorney, and a lot of times, of course, the state victimizes low-income families, especially, which is really awful. So they don't have any money, they don't have maybe no wherewithal, maybe no family support, and now that this government agent took your kids and forced them to live with strangers, and you have no money, and you have nothing, and you have no job, and they're still beating you in the head. You're a bad parent. We told everybody. We accused you. We know you did it. Let's keep beating you. You can't see your kids. Yeah. This is what is going on, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I'm so serious about it because it hurts me. It's hurting children. I'm just going to give you a couple of quotes of some of the people that I've interviewed. This is from a Florida pediatrician. Either DCF goes too far or they don't go far enough. Why? They're working with a lot of money. They can't figure it out. There are 3 laws, 3 federal laws specifically. I'm sorry, it's actually 4 that are funding all of these things. And we have the Mondale Act of 1974. We have the Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act of 1980. We have Social Security Title 4E funds. And we have the ASFA public law known as American Safe Families Act. And all of these federal laws just bring in the money into the states from the federal government, which is really our taxpayers. I mean, we are paying for this atrocity. So, if you have a child removed from your house by CPS, even unfounded, and you are innocent, they will take that child in minutes after the child is born. Okay, so now CPS, if you are pregnant and you have it's the same vicious cycle, there's a false accusation, there's no evidence, it doesn't matter. The Department of Children and Families will take babies off their mother's breasts. That's how much they want the kids. I think that's their motto, get the kids. That's all they care about. How do you take an infant off a mother's breast because somebody from somewhere said something? This isn't America. Could you imagine the kids? Imagine how terrifying that would be. Here you are home with your loving family and boom, you're taken away by police officers. That's scary. Then you're put in a home with a bunch of strangers. You know who they are. Do you know how terrifying that is for kids? It's terrifying. It's hard enough. So why did the CPS agents actually do this? Why don't they protect us? Well, and this is just a compilation of this is actually a part of a letter that went to Congress several times over, because there's so many parents out there affected by this that we're screaming and yelling everywhere. Nobody's listening to us. You just got to keep going. So what we had found was if a child is removed by your house by CPS, even unfounded, and you are innocent, they will take that child when he's born. Babies are highly adoptable, and the federal government pays out $6,000 to the CPS office who conducts the kidnapping and gets them adopted quickly. So like the 4 different laws providing the funding, that's all part of it. So the pickup alone, you get $6,000 right then and there. $6,000. Boom! So could you imagine the incentives of wanting to go ahead and pick up more kids? So you go back to your workplace and you say, boss, I got 5 kids yesterday. How much did we make? $30,000? Agents are not trained in real evidence recognition. In fact, no agent in CPS has any training in evidence, the Constitution, or criminal justice. Wonderful. What the heck are they trained on? Agents who had never had children and don't understand that a few toys in the corner of the room is not a hazardous mess. Agents are trained to use subjective speculation and not objective factual reporting. The agents do not get psychological evaluations. A number of agents who were abused as a child themselves see abuse in every home they go into, even if there's none. Most states do not require agents to have a degree in social sciences. Any degree will do. The agency has no checks and balances, and this is the biggest problem. A field agent can lie to a judge or police officer with absolutely no proof and have it entered as factual evidence in a court of law. Agents are trained to believe they are immune from the authority of the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, and 14th Amendment. They violate this in every investigation done nationwide. The state of Florida, over the course of 15 years, collected $43 million to feed this system. Each child in the state of Florida has a bounty on their head. That's a gal volunteer, told me that. Last year, in the year 2014, the Associated Press reported Department of Children and Family, within the past 5 years, 477 deaths, children. These are children in DCF care. There's a number of cases per 100,000 children in the United States. This is a study, out of 100,000 children in the United States being abused under CPS. Physical abuse, 160. From parents, 59. CPS, sexual abuse, 112. Parents, 13. Neglect at the hands of CPS, 410. Parents, 241. Medical neglect on CPS, 14. It's about the same. Medical neglect on parents, about 12. Fatalities. This is in the care of the state. Fatalities of children, 6.4 per 100,000. For parents, it's 1.5. So you understand this, that we're taking children from good, loving homes, we are removing them with your taxpayer dollars, and we are putting them in dangerous places. What are we doing to our kids? You want to know what happens to them? The kids will end up in foster care. Can we talk about that first? Can I assume? Wait a minute, okay. The calculated average is for every one abused child removed from an abusive home, there are 17 unabused children removed from loving, non-offending homes. 17? Per one? This is insane. A study released on April 7, 2005, Washington State-based foster care provider and the Harvard Medical School. The study used case records and interviews to assess the status of young adults alumni of foster care. Only 20% of the alumni could be said to be doing well. Thus, foster care failed for 80%. They have double the rate of mental illness. Their rate of post-traumatic stress disorder was double the rate for Iraq war veterans. The former foster children were 3 times more likely to be living in poverty and 15 times less likely to have finished college. And nearly 1/3 of the alumni reported that they had been abused by a foster parent or another adult in a home. And it's a shame that they didn't do the study and added, which is the biggest source of abuse in foster homes, and that's children-on-children abuse. And there's no checks and balances. They don't get penalized. If you're a parent and you went on your visitation and you noticed that your child had a mark, black eye maybe even, and you went ahead and you reported to DCF, hey, my kid had a mark on his face. Oh, well, yeah, okay. Okay. They do not prosecute against cases against foster parents unless they have to. The news forces them to. They just don't. They care about the adopted kids because the adoptable kids, they can adopt out real quickly and make the money really fast. These are a lot of problems, and I think I wanted to talk about this young man right here who's going to be turning 18 in a couple of months. Unfortunately, he's been in the system for quite a few years, about 12 years. I know his mom really well, and I have a letter. And I just sort of wanted to give you what she has undergone all these years. 6 years they've taken her son, and they're still trying to keep her. He's 18. She's never had her parental rights terminated. There was never any proof of any allegations of abuse or anything. It was a medical abuse over medication. There was no reason for him. He's been really hurt and emotionally abused in foster care. So they want to keep him, and they're trying to say he needs to go to a psych home. You know, all these years, 6 years, she's just been begging to bring her son home. So if I can just have 1 minute, I'm going to read this letter that Tara wrote. And I think it's important to hear because I really feel what she feels. On this day 6 years ago, my son was ripped from my loving arms and thrown into a life of immense pain, abuse, and suffering. You would think that as each year passes, I would be used to not having him around, and that it would hurt less as each year passes. But to be honest, every day that passes, it gets harder and harder. I started to realize that for 2,190 days, I haven't tucked him in at night. 2,190 days, I haven't woken up to him by my side. It has been 2,190 painful days without his hugs and kisses, his smile, his laughter, his sense of humor, and holding his hand through the good times and the bad. It has been 2,190 days that I have gone by that neither of us have spoken to one another. Those three simple words, and by far the most powerful and life-changing words, I love you. It has been 2,190 days of no celebrations, no holidays shared together, no memories made, and without a single picture taken that we could look back and reflect on and remember the times we shared together as a family. For 2,190 days, we have been robbed of us being a family and the inability to watch him blossom and grow up to be the young man I saw him to be. It feels as if our hearts were ripped out of our chests and there's a missing piece of our hearts that can never be put back together again. So much time out of those 2,190 days has gone by that he could be educated, past the second grade, where he stayed for the last 6 years of his life. So many of these adults he could go out with into the world and be productive citizen. There have been 2,190 days missed opportunities to shape him into the young man I had already worked to achieve, to prepare him for the future, and which I had already begun to lay the foundation for. All those years I have not had him around me to show me what love is, and without an opportunity for me to grow and learn to be a better parent to him and for my future children. I lost my only son. Most importantly, it has been 2,190 days that I have been unable to mold him, shape him, teach him to be the young man God intended him to be. And lastly, 2,190 days has gone by without the ability to reassure him that through everything he has been through, that there is a God, that he loves him, and that his love is unconditional and everlasting. I love you, and I miss you so much, Austin.